Hi, welcome to the Glasshouse Festival. I am Elena Abraham and I am happy to introduce Mr. Sudarak Alve and Mr. Riaz Komo. Mr. Alve is a Padma Shri awardee, the fourth highest civilian award by the President of India in 2016. He is a social documentary photographer who has exhibited in several places in the world in different galleries. Riaz Komo is a multimedia artist and a curator based in Mumbai. He is the ideator of Kochi Muzres Binale and he is interviewing Mr. Sudhakar Alve today. Welcome to both of you.
Good evening, everyone. Let me first of all thank the organizers of Glasshouse Poetry Festival, especially Jija Hari Singh and Elena Abraham. So to begin with, let me give an introduction to renowned photographer Sudarak Alve, who is with us today. Sudarak was born and brought up in Bambari village in Akola district, Maharashtra. His father was a poet and was part of Ambedkar's movement, and his father had converted along with Ambedkar into Buddhism. Sudarak's family has multiple stories of migration, arriving, returning and arriving again to Bombay. After completing his photography course in 1987 from prestigious Sir J.J. School of Art, he remained in the city and decided to document social reality. He lived a life filled with painful memories, carrying the dreams of Ambedkar, which was instilled by his father, with a multi-layered documentation of base lives in cosmopolitan Bombay. His engagement as a photographer, etched in history, has commendable transformative effects for Dalit community living in the margins, especially in the city of Mumbai. Since 1988, Sudarak Alve has continued to document heartrending stories and issues from across and around India. He was conferred Padma Shri, the fourth highest civilian honor by the President of India in 2016. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate Mr. Sudarak for all his achievement and becoming a fighter with a camera for dignity and equality among people. So as we move forward, the format which we are doing is that, I'll be asking few questions regarding Sudarak's career. So I'm going into the first question. Dear Sudarak, I've been a big admirer of your work, and it's a privilege to speak to you as part of this poetry festival. Being a Mumbaiker since 1992, studying in JJ School of Art, the same college you studied photography, actually, it gives me a special insight in looking at your works. It's very interesting to see the first slide you're showing is of Jahangir Art Gallery, the Adda, as most of us students and as artists spend our evenings. I thank you for sharing this image you shot at the time of the crisis we are all going through. I'm sure many of our friends would cherish this image, which comes as a big nostalgia in times like this. Just going back, in comparison with your career, I've been an art administrator and a curator since last 10 years, and I have worked with more than 400 artists from all across the world. But I do feel and share my guilt that it is Kochi Muzres Binale's loss in not representing your work. And me being part of that organization, I feel it more. The kind of work you're doing deserves a special place in such exhibitions and inside Indian museums as a reminder and as a message to people. Uh, Coming to your career as a photographer, I mean, coming to Bombay as a child with your family, as many layers of struggles which you have been kind of speaking in many forums and many platforms. I mean that you share it with a lot of rigor and a sense of reality and sense of you know uh, you know pain in most of the conversations you bring in. Could you please take us through the early years of your experience in the city with the camera?
Thank you, Riaz. It's a privilege to talking to you, and thank you, Jija Hari Singh, and it's a privilege to speak from here. Thank you again. My father migrated to city, and along with him, we came to this city. It was the first early childhood, and then. He was a foot soldier of Ambedkar movement.
Move.
He was a poet. He used to write on Ambedkar on his poetry. He has he was one of the when Ambedkar took to embrace Buddhism. So he was there present at that ground, and so he inculcated Ambedkar's all thoughts of transformation. It was the first batch of Dalits who got education, and he started putting his thoughts in poetry and sharing with the people, because we have just denounced Hinduism, and because the whole the caste system was there, the Varna system was there, and we went. Our colonies or our houses were outside of the villages. Even if you're crossing from the village, my forefathers, my father has to put has to cover his face and pick up the chappals to cross the road. That was a kind of a thing which we came from. But as soon as Ambedkar has given us this new life of being a human, he was putting all his effort in it to make sure that his thoughts should reach to the society, to the marginalized, and some social action should start working. So I'll just read his one of the poem, which is I found it. It's a 60 years old poem, and how he praised Ambedkar. It's in Marathi. बुद्धा तुझ्या दारी मी उभा दिन भरी सांग मला आला का भीम तुझ्या घरी नाही थंडी ऊन वारा तयाने बघितला मोलवान रक्ताचा थेंब थेंब उतला. So this Ambedkar has kind of working hard for the marginalized, for the Dalit, to make them dignity, give them liberty from the 2005 years old caste system, which was using us as a menial worker. In most of the villages, our job is to pick up the dead animals, clean the street, pick up the garbage, go to the drainage, and it was a landless labors, with no power. Even in the initial stage, if I tell you, Riaz, it was barter system. We will work free, and only food will be given, and that food also is still food. So then he got education. He went to Nagpur and he got education, and then he came to Bombay. And Bombay was the kind of a center, because it was Chaitya was here, Ambedkar's home, Rajguru was here. So it was everybody was coming to our house, talking about Ambedkar and his poetry, and how his transform our lives. So I was growing up in that, but suddenly our financial position went down. So I went back again for my preschool for 7 to 8 years in my village, and it was difficult for us to to sustain there also, as there was nothing, absolutely no support system. So we came back again to our fathers, and then after that he enrolled me to the JJ School of Art for the photography course. And so it was, I completed the course um, 3 years before, but I was not having a camera. But one of my professor, Mr. Bolekar from Fine Arts, he said this boy is struggling too much with, he could see that, I'm struggling with finance, I'm struggling with hunger, there was nothing to hold on. So he took me literally to the photography class, and he said, take him, and he will learn something, and he will do the wedding photography, and he'll survive. So, that is how, and I used to wait for hours to give, but we were poor, so the trust level was not there. So I didn't get the camera for 3 years. And then one kind neighbor, found that my mother spoke to him, and he agreed to give me 3,500 to buy a camera. And as soon as I buy the camera, I stayed away with my mother. We went to Chaitya, and my first black and white roll was shot at Chaitya. And I don't know why I went there, but it was Ambedkar. It was that movement which has given us dignity, and that's what we understand what he has done for us, and why he is important, and why his thoughts are important at this moment. So yes, I am also one of the migrant, and many times I come to the city and gone back from here.
Almost like, going to the Chaitya to kind of take an oath to kind of, what Ambedkar had dreamt,
Yes.
To continue that mission. So I think, the city, I think, being, me also living in city since last 30 years, and the city has a tremendous pull.
Yeah.
I think, we were discussing that. The people who have gone back, around 30,000 people have started coming back every day, now to this Bombay city. So I think this is a city which has got a lot of magnetic power.
Ambedkar told us to leave the villages because the caste system was very rigid there. So once you come, at least there is something to hold on. You have avenues, you have opportunities. In village, it's very difficult to kind of.
Ambedkar had that vision that, if you have to kind of, grow, that you have to move into the, the modernity that which is India's, cities were, going to be part of that. And Ambedkar had that, imagination with him, and that's maybe one reason he insisted on, moving to the urban spaces to become part of that, the growth along with the modernity. I think that brings you, brings our discussion to the city a little bit more in detail. So you have started your career with Free Press Journal, and you mentioned to me many times that, you used to go and spend most of your time and sleep inside the fire brigade stations to get the first news about atrocities, violence, or any kind of tragedies which has occurred, and you wanted to kind of to report it first, and you moved up. As we see your career, I think you moved up and you started working with many different organizations, news agencies based in Bombay, and you've documented earthquake, Bombay riots, bomb blasts, and also you followed the underworld stories and the political class and the rich. I'm sure, in starting a life, especially in the early 90s, where India was also walking along with liberalization. A lot of migrants were going to the city to kind of be part of that, the development which the cities were undertaking. So it would have been, a great experience. Can you, take us through that a little bit more in detail?
Yes. So I was doing freelancing for the newspaper, and they saw me that. So they asked me to work for them, and then I said I'll start from now. So as a press photographer, what you need is the information, the thing, and it taught and teach you a lot. It gives an access. It gives confidence to you to move around in the city, go to the site and shoot. So in 1990 was just beginning of Shiv Sena and BJP, and they were coming in power, and so
communal politics, mainly.
I was
communal politics. Yeah.
the politics started, and it was just the economy was just opening. And so I photographed on all the leaders from that 1990. I followed. I've been to the houses of Arun Gawli. Um, I've been to the houses of Hazim Astan Mirza. That was the time where everything was going, in a different, everybody was kind of free and expressing themselves. Newspapers were doing very well, but at the same time, the reformers started reforming. So the police, they started killing the gangsters. There were gang wars in Bombay. So it was a very interesting part of a photographer out of 1990. I was witnessing Bombay riots at the same time. And uh, so it was very difficult to see the city which was going in a very different way. That was not Bombay was so calm and good city, but then this religious riots have seen a very different angle of the city, and only the innocent people were killed in that. So this was very interesting as a photographer. When I look back in 1990s, there's so many things was happening at the same time. And I had to, and as I come from a specific background, so I know that I knew that I have to only sort is to my camera, and camera will only change my life and my identity. And that was exactly happened. That's the reason I used to sleep at fire brigade. I used to call police at 4 o'clock in the morning. Police used to know me by my voice. He said, Sudarak, sleep, there's nothing today, don't worry, we will call you if anything is there. Because when you have, and this was the first opportunity I got as a photographer. There was nobody from my family, whether in arts school or in journalism. And then I cracked it with my hard work, and I keep shooting pictures, and that's what I've learned also a lot, like about the whole politics, sociology, about city, geographic, about environment, yeah, it was wonderful.
But I think as one looks at your career, I mean, you never stopped there. I mean, from the city, you are also using the city as a site to understand that, I mean, the crisis which Indian villages are going through. Because if the people are moving into the city, I mean, like many of the statistics and stories, it is because they are moving away from the caste discriminations and financial crises. And we have stories that, and that you have documented. You have made a fantastic document working with a project which is titled Endangered Species on malnutrition in the rural India, and I mean in most of the North Indian states, and also you've been into the the eastern part. I mean, so it's looking at your kind of urge to kind of also find the reasons and go further. And I remember that, I mean, you're calling that particular research which you did on malnutrition as silent epidemic, which is emerging in our rural India. And you also alarmed by saying that unless and until we speak about it today, we are going to have a very poor, next generation, growing up with, like, undernourished, problems. So, and I also watched that documentary, which was in your, which is in your website, which was produced by the Photography Promotion Trust. I mean, it brings in, like, great details, and the way the film is done along with your stills. I think it brings in, like, a lot of statistics. For example, almost 9 lakh Indian children under the age of 5 died of malnutrition in 2018, and we rank 102 out of 117 in Global Hunger Index as per the 2019 report. I mean, like, the recent one, the last year's report. And we see that reflection. I mean, how that crisis immediately erupts. When we see, like, we saw it, like, at the time of the COVID pandemic. I mean, how people were panicking and rushing back to their homes. And they're walking, thousands of kilometers to kind of reach back to their villages. So it's like, it's almost like, walking towards one's own permanent address, to one's own destinations. So I'm sure, after having a very contrasting life in Bombay, then moving to the villages to kind of research further about human plight, I think it must have been very painful for you. Could you, please talk a little bit more in details about these researches?
Yeah, the statistic is very, very depressing. When I read first time, and I felt so strong about it, that how we can be so insensitive towards our children who's going to be the future of our country, and they're dying because of there's no food. They're dying because hunger. Their mother is getting not food. There's and these are all remote places. Kalahandi in Odisha, or Nandurbar in Maharashtra, or in Thane district. If you just go 100 kilometers from Mumbai, called Jawahar Mokhada, in 2018, 700 to 800 children have died of malnutrition. Like, where are we heading? And the linkages are not there. The food doesn't reach there. It is not that the food is not there. We have stacks of godowns filled with ration, but there's no empathy towards the poor, to that they should eat and they should be healthy, and they don't understand these are our countrymen, they are our children only. So it's a very I've seen children, I've seen pregnant ladies, and it was heartening to see that a lady didn't get a proper nutrition, proper food her while she was pregnant. The result was child was malnourished. 1.5 year 2 years old child looks like 3 months 1 month old child. And then there was so much of customs and cultures are there. Plus there is no facility, there's no education, there's no health support, there's no support. The poor have left on their own. So this series, I've started from Chhattisgarh to Jharkhand to Odisha to Maharashtra, and it was difficult to kind of how we, where we are heading up, how we can't see. And imagine now the same family which have returned from city of Mumbai, Delhi, Kolkata. Can you see that there'll be a definite hunger, deaths will be there. There'll be much more deeper problem now. They were managing with their field or their jobs, but now imagine returning so many people back home. So there'll be definitely the coming month, the scene will be tragically different. It's going to be very, very dangerous situation of the children from the malnutrition, for Dalits especially, which have, again, this very superior hierarchy is there. The first goes to the upper class, then second goes to the baniyas, and third, it comes to, if it's there, then it reaches to the untouchable or formerly untouchable or Dalit family. So they are not very near of your linkages of government schemes. So there's so much of discrimination happening while distribution also. I went to one of the Anganwadi school, and most of the children were standing outside because they said, no, you can't come inside. They were giving the food outside. So that kind of a situation is there. So this is the series which I've done very recently before the lockdown.
Mm-hmm. So you, I think, as almost like a continuation to this conversation, I felt that, the interview which you gave for the Dalit camera, I think a few years ago, speaks a little bit more in detail about these issues, and also about caste discriminations and many other issues. But the project which you did, about the scavenger's life. And there you mentioned that, since many decades that, India has not changed, towards these kind of discriminative attitudes. And you give an example of Sunil Jana's photographs, which was shot in 1956. And you compare it with your photograph you shot recently, and both look almost same. And in many of your in many of your conversations about your work and the discriminations you yourself, felt as a photographer, as an outcast, was also because of your project which you did with the manual scavengers. And in that interview, in one of the interviews, or in your website, I think it shows that the famous writer and poet Om Prakash Valmiki speaks that. I mean, he says that only those who face discrimination feels its sting. But one can see that, I mean, as a photographer, you took it as a challenge. The sense of discrimination which you were feeling, you took it as a challenge professionally and went deeper and deeper, much closer and closer to understand the struggles of these people and who live under this severe caste discrimination. You also documented communities living under severe poverty, humiliation, alcoholism, almost living in a situation close to slavery. I think when one looks at these projects, I mean, it is not just documenting, these kind of stories of discrimination. One can very much see that, I mean, there is also a fight to build one's own identity as a social documenter, as the best photographer, India has produced. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
No, yeah, I know. When I started this series, it was very interesting when I started this series. And while photographing, there was a police constable standing there. I saw a few men going into the manhole, and then I asked him, "Do you think you'll work this?" He said, "Even give me lakhs of rupees, I will not do this job." And I asked him why. He said, "No, we will not do this. Because this society is very casteist society, and this job which workers are doing is a hereditary job which comes from their forefathers to them. It was the lowest rung which is supposed to do this job, and so started in such a dignity and justice, the untold story of conservancy workers. These are the sweepers from Bombay. There are 40,000 sweepers, and when I saw them, it was a shame on me, and I felt shameful that how a citizen of my country or my brothers are living and doing this inhuman work, of manual scavenging, and it was. I was sad that I stopped this project couple of times, but I kept going back again because I had a camera which the only I could help with through my camera and pictures, and I kept shooting this over the years, these images, and I shared these images. So when I shared these images, one of the exhibition, one lady walked in and she said, "What is your caste?" I said, "Why?" I said, "This is an exhibition. It's a National Gallery of Modern Art, and why are you asking me this question?" He said, "No, because you must be from the lowest community, because then only you can shoot these pictures." I said, so that is this kind of psycho people has. People doesn't know that there is a people working for them like this. They are saving their lives. They are putting their life in danger. They are sweeping the street. It's 11,000 tons of garbage has been created, and these people carry that with their hands and carry on their shoulders. Shoulders, and after that they go to the sewage line. The sewage lines are as big as double the bus, and if once inside there's nothing but darkness, they can be flushed with any gases. They can die there, and if you see the many cases of death are in sewage only in the recent times. There's a law is there, but nothing has been done because it is like them and us. So it is a caste based occupation, so people really don't bother to kind of there's no dignity in this job. There's no respect of what you're doing. If one soldier goes to Kargil, he gets gallantry award, but the soldier who's every day here, and does make sure that you are healthy, has been not looked after, or no no respect was given to him. So these are the images. They ask you for that respect, and then what happened while working with those, they think themselves as garbage but nothing, because there's no one who could come, and there's no packages, there's no government scheme. When we saw the pictures of Sunil Jana, and it was shown by one of photographer friend. So that was only one picture he's documented. After 50 years, nobody had documented or photographed the sweepers of this country, or Mumbai. So we went to Mars, we went to the moon, but there's not a last 50 years, even the equipment which has supposed to be changed have not changed. The technology has not changed. The city's drainage system has not changed. Why? And why this only one particular community are dying? And it is same in every part of the country. You go to Bihar, you go to Delhi, or you go to Madhya Pradesh. There's specific community of Valmiki. You read Valmiki's quote, and imagine the man Valmiki's has written a Ramayana, and the same his community is not looked after by anyone. It's so much of a hate for them in villages. These are the people who have 4-5 houses. They are badly discriminated all the time. They come in front of you, they will get scolded. Why did you come in front of us? If you go to UP, the domes are there which cleans the gutters and things. Even their shadow is still impure. So this is the country where the whole caste is embedded so much that they don't even look at a human as a human. And so that's that's the whole kind of, I'm documenting this life to share to the ignorant or ignorance of the society.
Yeah, I think you have worked extensively with this manual scavenging and also the conservancy workers of Bombay. And I can see that, these are the two projects which has traveled all across the world and, gave you, a lot of recognition in international media and also among a lot of photographers.
No, it was not international media. It was the one of the campaign by our Prime Minister called Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. That was where this issue started emerging, and everybody was working for sewage workers. Everybody was trying to do something, but it was nowhere. It was just a picture opportunity. It was very good initiatives, but it again went
Back into the gutters.
Yes.
I think you've done an extensive series with the Kamatipura, and but I had a like as you were mentioning, people's response. I feel just want to go back to my memory of showing your work in Calicut Literature Festival, and which was attended by thousands of people. We still remember that people were shocked and the kind of response we got, and they couldn't believe these as realities, though they all experience in their own premises. So just moving forward with, I want you to speak about your project which you did with the Red district in Bombay. But before going into that, I will also put this as a question. Maybe this is the final question that I'm asking you. And your life as a photographer living in Bombay has it's very multi-layered. And you were one of the most popular page 3 photographer for Bombay Times. In fact, you were, as a photographer, you were also recognized by any celebrities of the city. And you lived in extreme contrasting realities as a photographer. And, to let also the people know, I would like to share one story which you told me, that one day, you were in the gutter documenting the workers, and the same day, same evening, you went to Ambani's house to shoot. What a contrast. I think, maybe you can speak about, more about, the social realities which you encounter on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it was actually, the job was helping my family and me to kind of settle in the city. So it was a very important job. And yeah, but what happened while doing this job, I used to kind of follow my personal stories, and Kamatipura was one of my personal stories because I read a great Dalit poet, Namdev Dasal's poetry. They are going to 70 years now, and Namdev Dasal was a good friend, and there's so much influence on him. He's the founder of Dalit Panther, and they were doing amazing work in um, about the atrocities and kind of fighting against the system and against the perpetrator of atrocity cases. So that was happening, and as he was in Kamatipura, he spent all of his life in Kamatipura. So I was interested to know what is happening. So once I went there, some 15 years back, nothing have changed. The famous writer Tendulkar has written a forward for the book, and I read the forward. That forward is same as it is today. If you go to Kamatipura, nothing have changed in last 70 years. So I kept doing photographing there. I have to learn a lot to kind of focus, because you have to build a trust. You have to spend time, and these are not the images which you go walk and shoot. So while doing this, my main job was to go to the sewage workers, to follow them, and the evening, after my office starts, it was a completely a different world together I used to visit, which is a glitter, too much of money, I have never seen, and such an unequal world. It is inequality was it like uh, full of inequalities. You see ample of food, beautiful clothes, cars. People are getting it. Perfume in the midnight. You see people wearing black glasses and colorful shirts, and that was our shooting. They were entering the party. There's a champagne in their hand. So I keep shooting this for my livelihood. But I met very good number of people there, and um, so every party I will go, and then the same day, in one day, what happened, that I was shooting pictures at sewage in Dharavi, and the same day I got an assignment in the evening to go to Ambani's party. And like, you take a name, and I was there in their house shooting pictures of them for the newspaper. So it was a different life altogether. But that life is never. I was fascinated in the beginning, but my education and Ambedkar was behind all the time, so it never fascinated me. And I quietly, I keep doing the photography of marginalized, and I always say, I don't say them marginalized, but they're my own people, because I know I'm one of them. Different those 7-8 years when I was working with the Bombay Times, and it was one of the beautiful supplement, and yeah, it's given me a different exposure to a village boy which comes from village, which doesn't have a proper housing, proper background, and looking at them and understanding. Unbelievable. But it was a great experience. I could learn so many things, and I could.
It's also appropriate for this particular festival
Yeah.
that you bring in your friend Namdev Dasal, the poet.
And he wrote. So these are the last 4 pictures from 1980s of Bombay, and he wrote on poetry on before he was admitted in hospital. So he wrote some poetry on my book. So for end this thing, I will just read. This is Namdev. I will read his one of the poetry, and the poetry is on Bombay. Um, so Namdev Dasal's Mumbai, Maja Priya Rande. Mumbai, my beloved whore. You warm up our beds, play the flute of eternity, play around with our dreams, breathe fire into our sperms, O footloose hussy, O curly slut, O Khandoba's concubine, O wanton coquette, O whore with the heart of gold. I won't go away from you like a ragged beggar. I will strip you to your bone. Come, throw open the gates of heaven to the poor devils. Mumbai, my beloved war. I will take you for a ride. I will strike you a dumb and go. Uh, Thank you, Riaz, for such a wonderful conversation with you.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, I mean, almost towards the end of our conversation, we went through the stories of extreme, contrasts. Yeah, I think it's a great picture to end after hearing the poem which you recited. Of I hope this conversation you know was good for the people to also understand Sudarak always work. It was wonderful. Thank you, Sudarak, and all the very best for your coming projects.
So, yeah, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much.
It's wonderful talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah.